Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're on? Okay, welcome to tonight's episode of Paranormal Encyclopedia. I am, as always, your host, Kevin Mears, Demonologist in the Paranormal Encyclopedia. I am joined by my two cohorts.
I am, as sometimes, author Brian McKinley.
And as always, I am Baron Voltage.
And because these two jokers forgot, stage hypnotist and light, medium at large?
No, small, medium.
Small, medium at large. And the author and godfather of paranormal thrillers.
Well, that's where the sometimes comes in.
Not sometimes, all the time. I'm going to get you through the basics of self-promotion on radio if it kills you. Because it's not killing me.
It might actually do better for his promotion, considering aren't the vampires the undead? You have to die first.
Yeah, but it'll stake him and leave him for the sun.
That's what's been holding me up. I'm not dead.
Well, the thing
all the
is
great
that
artists are dead.
a stake through your heart would certainly hold you up, especially if you're against the wall.
Okay, so to get on point.
I had to do it.
First, we want to talk about our sponsor, of course, which would, in this case, would be Audible.
Beloved Audible.
Folks, if you're not aware of Audible, you should be. audibletrial.com/paranormale, audibletrial.com/paranormale. Audible is a wonderful resource of audiobooks. Current ones, classic ones, thousands of titles.
My books.
Yeah, all of Brian's books are on there. Dacre's books are on there.
Anne Rice's are on there.
You have to
I
do it
love
every time.
making him cringe.
There are worse books you could mention.
Agreed.
Yeah, Twilight's probably on there too.
Oh, it's for sure.
Lord.
Read by Gilbert Gottfried. Oh, wait, sorry, no, that's 50 Shades of Grey.
And then he said to her, I want
Guys,
you
to... stay on point.
You see what happens when you let us be in control? The two jokers.
But, point being, if you go to the link I mentioned, audibletrial.com/paranormale, you get a free month's membership and you get a free audiobook.
Yes.
You can cancel at any time. If you decide to cancel, the audiobook is yours to keep.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I want to bring up before we get into tonight's topic is that we do have a new GoFundMe, which is gofundme.com/paranormal-e encyclopedia. What? Oh, mute the laptop. It helps.
Oh, that's what that was.
Yeah, sorry, hold on.
We are
people about this.
We are professionals, people.
We swear we are. So much so. We are not
There we go.
experiencing technical difficulties.
So, as you guys know, we've been at this a year now.
Yes.
It's fantastic. We love doing the radio show. Here, it isn't just that we want money, although of course we do. It's that we have a chance to go from the 1 hour format that we have now to a full 2 hours. Be 2 hours of us every week on Thursday. We'd be still having guests. What we'd probably do is what we did when we first did 2 hours, which was we'll do an hour with the guest, and then we'll do an hour of the three of us, or if it's a very good guest, 2 hours of the guest.
Definitely.
It lets us get further into topics. It lets us get more in depth with our guests and do a lot of cool things we can't really do in just an hour's time. And with 5 minutes total about dedicated to ads, it cuts down the amount of time we have.
Yes.
Now, keep it in mind, if we don't meet the goals, the show's going to keep going. We're going to keep doing an hour. This isn't about keep the show alive, and don't think I'm saying it is. It's about more.
Yes.
It's about what we have and what we can do.
This is one of those situations where you can never get enough, especially of Kevin and me going head-to-head on a particular subject matter.
Yeah, we need to do more of the friendly debate type
Of
stuff.
course. There is no such thing as an unfriendly debate. There is a such thing as an unfriendly argument.
Agreed.
Yes. And Kevin, you realize we're going to have Brian as our referee.
Oh, this will be fun.
Oh, yes.
There's a lot of neat options on there. I'm looking to start, again, videotaping courses, which comes into tonight's topic in particular.
Yes.
Because I had somebody recently on YouTube and on Facebook. What?
He's real low. I'm trying to make him louder.
Oh, I get that. The only reason why I'm speaking softer is because I'm coming in so loud.
Oh, well, tell me that.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm coming out really loud as well, with a little bit of an echo.
Is that better?
It might be because my mic is so sensitive.
And let's see, yeah, I think that's better.
A little bit.
Now, if you talk louder, I'll lower
I could talk louder. Actually, you want to know what? Right there is fantastic. Thank you very much.
So,
I
anyway,
love the adjustments.
for anyone who's wondering, because we haven't gotten anywhere near the topic yet, tonight we're talking about paranormal groups and paranormal investigation, particularly the bad groups, the goofy groups, the nut jobs, and the wackos that are out there.
The ones that are not taps.
Yeah, or me.
Or you.
And how to tell what you're... Because a question I just got, both on YouTube and in email, was, I want to study demonology. How do I do that?
Pick up a book from Audible.
And the short answer is, it's hard. The long answer is, and what you need to do is find somebody who already knows what they're doing to learn from.
Mm-hmm.
There are no classes in demonology. There are classes in demonology, but you need to go to seminary. There are a handful of other independent courses out there. I can't speak to the positive, negative, or any courses that may exist because I'm not familiar with them. And I don't badmouth. I'm not going to badmouth something I don't know, or I'm not going to praise something I don't know.
Right.
I am looking at putting together my own and videoing them and offering them. And again, if you do the GoFundMe at a certain level, you can get all of those, and there's going to be about 30. So it's not going to be a small course.
And it's certainly of something that's of worth, because they do say the best way to learn anything is through practical knowledge and practical experience. And the only way to do anything safely is when you're being, I don't want to say overwatched, but more along the lines of having somebody that does know what you're going to be doing wrong, keeping an eye on things. So believe me, it's
apprenticeships.
Exactly.
That's
the
why
best way to go.
In demonology, pretty much it's all apprenticeships. There's just certain things I can't teach you, and no one else can teach you by doing a lecture or standing here or doing a radio show even, because you need to experience it. I think, in fairness, one of the most obvious analogs to this is combat. You can get taught how to shoot a gun to the high heavens.
I can speak from experience here.
But there's nothing somebody can teach you to completely prepare you, I think, to be shot at.
Yeah, take it from me from personal experience. Despite how much training I had or whatever, it's something completely different when bullets are whizzing past your ear, past your body, striking your body. Definitely was not fun. But yeah, I mean, nothing ever really prepares you. You could read about something a million times in a book, really get in depth into it, but until you actually experience it, it's just words on a page.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or it's some guy telling you or yelling at you.
Yeah, a talking head, that just happens to be sitting on a body inside of a room. That's all it is. With demonology, and this is, again, coming from practical experience, it's dangerous. Forgive me for the language here. It's dangerous shit. So whatever the frick you do, don't walk into it blindly. Get somebody knowledgeable, that actually has experienced things one way or the other.
And I'm not the only person out there. So
exactly.
I mean, it's our show, so we're going to toot our own horn. But there are other
you're the one we
out
know.
there. And there are other
the
books.
guy we know.
Yeah, you're the guy we know.
And there's other a large part of what we're doing tonight is giving you tools for how to separate the wheat from the chaff, to go biblical on you. Because there's certain warning signs when you're looking at a group's page that tell you want to keep walking. The first and most obvious, and we've talked about this more than once, is if they want if they charge for investigations, they're not a good group.
All we need is your credit card number. Salvation is just a single phone call away.
And on a related note, this doesn't just cover paranormal groups. You see this. It's also exactly the same thing you really find with televangelists and
scam publishers
and well, specifically, but biblically even, there's a verse in the Bible that denounces the faith healers and, in my opinion, the paranormal investigators for doing what they do, because the Bible says that you cannot charge people money for using the gifts of God. And so, like, the ability, the recommended donation for to heal you is explicitly anti-biblical.
Yeah.
And that goes for casting out spirits. I mean, ghost hunting is one thing, and parapsychology is they're a different issue. But when you're dealing specifically with demonology, with actively trying to get things out of a house, you're dealing with something that is a gift of again, to put it in biblical terms, but there are other religions that have ways of dealing with it and similar viewpoints on it.
Yes.
What you're running into is it's a gift from God. It's a gift from the divine to be able to do this. That's something that you are given to aid people and to glorify God, not to line your pockets.
If anything, that's kind of I don't want to say based in reality, but more of something that maybe folks that are not that spiritual might be able to relate to. I'll go with Marvel here. Those with great power do have great responsibility, but then I'll even go more within a world that we know. Theodore Roosevelt once said, okay, if you have the power to change things, it's your responsibility to.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
There's also a practical thing here of, if you go to a doctor, they can give you a medicine that will demonstratively help. If you go to a psychiatrist, they can use scientifically demonstrable treatments. Is it always going to work? No. The reality is not all antidepressants work for everyone. Not all, sometimes you get cancer and chemo doesn't help.
Right.
But statistical probabilities, they could show you 9 times out of 10 this will work, and if it doesn't work, they have some other option for you to go with. I can't produce laboratory results to show you that what I do works. I don't feel, morally speaking, I can charge you. And here's the other reality too, and there are groups that will lie about this. Any group that tells you it has a 100% success rate is lying to you. There's one of two possibilities. One is it's a group that has no actual experience with the demonic, and I'll come back to that concept in a second. The other is that they've had very limited experience. Actually, pretty much it all comes down to they have no actual experience with the demonic. Either they do ghost cases, and they go, well, you got a ghost, there's nothing we can do. Yeah, that's about it. Or you get a lot of groups that do what Lou used to call feelings cases. Lou hated the feelings cases. I don't like them either. You get calls from people I get this terrible feeling every time I go into my attic. Can you come do an exorcism? You know what my answer to this is? Every single time? What Lou's answer to this is? Okay, are you experiencing anything else? No, I just get a bad feeling in this one room. Have you tried not going in the room anymore?
Like the old joke about the doctor. It hurts when I lift my arm like this.
Don't do it!
Don't lift your arm like that.
Because the reality is, one, if I go to a priest and go, okay, I've got this house that needs an exorcism, because they get a horrible feeling every time they go into the basement. And it's like, okay, so do you have any photographs of the spirit? No. Any EVP of the spirit? No. Have you seen anything happen in the house? No. They just get a really weird... Their priest will laugh me out of his office.
Mm-hmm.
For good reason. Get the house, but, if you get a bad feeling, just don't go there. Because the reality is there's a whole lot of other reasons why you may get a bad feeling in part of your house. And, actually, not for nothing, if you get a really weird feeling or unpleasant feeling in your house or in part of your house, and that's all that's happening, I'd talk to a contractor. Because the reality is you may have toxic mold, you may have any one of a number of other entirely natural problems in your house.
The vibration thing.
Yes. What's the name of it?
Low frequency.
The low
sound.
frequencies. People talk about how supposedly extremely low frequencies, like for example, if you have water dripping on a pipe and it's causing this vibration in the house that you can't really hear, but it's there, how that can screw with your perceptions and make you perceive something like a presence in the house and things like that. That is true. The catch is to have it at that point. Basically, your organs are liquefying. That's why it's your body's defense mechanism to this super low frequency of sound is this feeling of paranoia, like there's something else in the house to get you to leave because you're dying.
Exactly.
So if you get weird feelings, first thing I do is call a contractor. Second thing I might consider doing is calling an interior decorator, or as much as I generally don't believe in it, feng shui.
Oh gosh.
Because, well, there's no science to feng shui despite what they claim at all.
None.
what it actually basically amounts to is interior decoration.
Mm-hmm. If it makes
you know
you feel better, then
the reality is, interior design, the layout of a house and things like that, do actually have effects on your mood.
It does have a psychological
Colors.
effect because of a person's capability to be able to feel
Well,
comfort.
The colors that are used,
Yes.
sometimes the fabrics, things can make a difference.
You know, granted, if you're seeing things fly across the room without somebody touching them, this is a different subject.
No.
If you walk out of a room and everything's fine, and when you walk back in and you see furniture stacked, that's when you call somebody like him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's the ghost taking a really strong position on interior design.
Yeah, that's feng shuiing vertically.
The point about all this, though, is there are mostly Christian groups out there that deal with these types of cases. They're usually prayer circles, and they'll come into the house and they'll say a bunch of prayers, and for purely psychological reasons, it helps. And because that's all they ever do, they assume they have a 100% success rate. The reality is, it's because you've never seen the real thing.
Exactly.
And this is one of the I have pet peeves, and that's basic. Tonight's my pet peeves with paranormal groups for all intents and purposes, and this is one of my biggest, because there's an interesting book out there. It's quite old now, because we had this was 90s to early 2000s, called The Other Side, about a woman whose son had the gift of clairvoyance, the ability to see and communicate with spirits,
Like me.
who was tormented by demons and spirits constantly. He drew as far as I know, he still does. I'm not in communication with the woman. I've spoken to her once many years ago, but drew all kinds of spirits to him. And she ran the gambit of groups that don't know what the hell they're doing. The first of which being one of these prayer circle groups that came into the house, said prayers, saw physical things happen to the house, and went, "What you have is very strong. We can't do anything about that. Goodbye."
Which to their credit is fair. I mean, at least if you know that it's
Yeah,
something.
but the next week, then they see another family, they'll tell them that they always succeed.
Well,
That's why I have a problem.
Well, that's different, yeah. But it's like if you're an electrical contractor and you come into a situation and you go, "Yeah, this is beyond my experience. I can't do this kind of rewiring." Yeah, it's like, well, that's fair.
And the sad part is, and I want to point this out now because we're going to do a dramatic build. This isn't the dumbest group type out there. The very last thing I'm going to talk about is the single stupidest way people approach the paranormal.
With a katana.
And just keep in mind, as dumbest things we're going to talk about now sound, there's a worse one. But the Jones case actually illustrates another really good example. And this is not so much a bad group as a group that's not suited to the problem, which are ghost hunter, a particular type of ghost hunter, and particularly parapsychologists. Now,
Ghost facers.
I have a lot of respect for the field of parapsychology because it's attempting to scientifically demonstrate all of this. And that's all well and good. And if you're dealing with a human spirit haunting, getting out the tape measures and going, well, how far did that teacup sail across the room? Is fine. But for Pete's sakes, when a woman is sexually assaulted by a spirit every day, you need to stop taking out the tape measure and figure out how to fix the problem. And there are some groups that sincerely don't get that. In the Denise Jones case, the one from the other side, she ran into a group that basically they just kept measuring everything and we want more evidence, we want more evidence, we want more evidence. Unfortunately, they weren't even a good parapsychologist group. The guy who was running the group was a glory hound, and we're going to get into that type in a minute. But a better example of this would probably be and again, I have respect for the investigators that were involved in the case because they were good scientists. They're just a good example of good scientists that are out to the depth. The case that was the basis for the movie and the book, The Entity. Because this is a woman who, again, the sexual assault stopped before the investigators got involved, as I understand it. But a woman who was describing classic textbook succubus attack from going back hundreds of years. and they just kept poking it with a stick and trying to understand the phenomenon and measure the phenomenon. And it's like, why didn't you get a priest? There comes a point when a good example I can give, because I've had this question asked of me before, is, so if you found these demons and this is a new phenomenon, why don't you study it instead of trying to get rid of it? And the answer is really simple. And I'll use a simple analogy. If you found a brand new type of animal that killed people for fun, like a person a day, would you let it live and let it run around wild, or would you kill or capture it and study it then?
SCP-043.
Yeah. You have something that's a real, clear, and obvious threat to people. The first concern is to help people. The second concern is to understand it, at least to me. You know, the yards, like I said, again, yardsticks are all well and good, but they have a time and a place. And human spirit, for the most part, human spirit cases are it, because human spirits are not usually dangerous. They can be. That's a whole other issue. And that's really another topic. Mm-hmm. But, so the next group, probably the worst than the other two by far, there are also the glory hounds out there. Glory hounds are in it for the fame. They want their own TV show. They want their own book. They want, their own miniseries. They want something.
Ladies and gentlemen, John Edward.
Oh, yeah. He's worse than the glory hound. Because the glory hounds I'm talking about believe in what they're doing. And they're not usually they're not faking things. They don't start faking things. They often wind up having to fake things because that's the reality of television. Mm-hmm. But John Brown's is doing a magic. John Edwards, excuse me, not John Brown's. John Edwards, James Van Prague, Sylvia Browne, when she was still alive, were performing a magic act badly. Mm-hmm. And calling that psychic ability. Which gets into another topic we need to get into at one point, which is psychics.
Well, we just did the whole topic of like con artists, and we talked a lot about fake.
So there's also the other side of psychics, the ones that actually know what they're doing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we should have something with legitimate.
There are, yes, I know, and we are working on trying to get some of the better ones on the show. Don't mistake me and think I think that all psychics are full of BS, because the reality is they're not.
Thank you.
But there's three broadly, and this does overlap. So real quickly, broadly, in my opinion, there are three types of psychic in the world. Mm-hmm. There are people who don't have any ability, know they don't have any ability, and are trying to rip you off. This is your Sylvia Browns, your John Edwards. Mm-hmm. People that think they have an ability they don't have, or have very little ability, which is the vast majority of people. In my experience, the vast majority of people who call themselves psychic aren't psychic. They're not frauds. They honestly, truly believe that they're psychic. Mm-hmm. It's their imagination. And then there's the smaller category of people who are legitimately psychic to a measurable degree. The overlap between the ones that don't have it and think they do and the ones that actually have it is there's a bunch of people that have a little bit of a gift that over-exaggerate how much to themselves. And again, it's an internal thing. I'm not calling them liars. To lie to someone, you have to know that you're lying. Mm-hmm. But they have a bit of a gift, and they've built it up in their head, and they think they're this great medium that can talk to the dead, and they're far more common than. This is also one of the reasons that when Lou and I did investigations, in a large extent, when I do investigations, and actually, really, this is another subgroup of groups I have issues with. There are a lot of groups that are like, oh, you have to have a psychic. No, you don't. And there's a real serious problem with depending on a psychic, which is, if I take a photograph of a spirit, I've got a physical representation of something. I have physical evidence. Is it perfect? No, because photographs can be faked. If a psychic says that they sense the presence of a spirit, or more significantly, if they don't sense the presence of a spirit, all I have is that person's impression, And that person may be psychic. Person may be entirely honestly saying what they believe. But psychics are not 100% accurate.
No.
In fact, legitimate psychics will tell you they're not 100% accurate.
This is why I say I'm a small medium at large.
Exactly.
Well, there's also the fact that when it comes to various types of psychics, there's different kinds.
This is also absolutely true.
Thank you, Beth.
So not all of them can sense spirits. Some of them are more bordering clairvoyancy to a degree.
What would you classify me as, considering that I can feel them, that I can hear them, and only very occasionally see them?
Clairaudience and a degree of mediumship, probably.
Again, small medium at large.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yep.
But and Beth is 100% correct. The problem is, a lot of people, both psychics who are very inexperienced and had to teach themselves, and paranormal groups of the same stripe, don't understand that you may be very gifted in one area, but that doesn't mean you're going to be good at something else.
Correct.
And the problem is, self-training can be very strenuous in and of itself because you're fumbling through on your own blocks.
Yes, exactly.
Additionally,
Oh,
there's
yes.
an appropriate teacher and different techniques that, even if normally this is for if you wanted to, at least sense spirits, your main forte may be more for connecting to, a more natural area and in general an environment, sort of like a radar pen.
Yeah.
But something that's usually attuned for something else could work better for you than something that's normally for where you're localized. And additionally, again, anybody who does go out to see a teacher, even at younger years, finding a teacher that clicks properly for you is kind of like, and to make the nerd reference, having somebody who's a sorcerer being taught magic by a wizard.
And, there's the other bit that not everybody experiences the individual gifts the same way. Me, I get massive migraines.
And here's, again, there's also the situation of I've seen good psychics whose opinion I respected make mistakes. It's why I don't recommend, I don't recommend groups in general depend on psychics. You use them as a source of information, especially if you know them to be reliable. Absolutely. But treat it as, I personally view it as another form of eyewitness testimony, which means on the rung of evidence, it's pretty much all forms of eyewitness are the lowest rung, because it's subjective and it's colored by perception and it's colored by all these other things. And honest, sincere people with a legitimate group gift make mistakes. It's
That's because they're human. And
Yes, exactly.
That's something a lot of people don't realize, especially with the more gifted and talented, or gifted or those with the talent to do so. Because one, it's something that's innate, even on a minor scale to begin with. There's also the fact that opportunities to expand on that may be fairly rare. So say somebody was born with a rather powerful innate gift, think like Jean Grey level as far as scale, but they're in an area that otherwise doesn't really have much by paranormal activity, doesn't get many, spirit visits or anything like that, and they've grown up into, their mid-30s before they go to an area and this thing, they pick up on and they can just shut down. Or they're overly nervous in more public places like hotels because of just all the energy, and then they don't know what to do with it. And that happens more often than a lot of people realize. And they all think it's something that's more psychosomatic with what they're dealing with, when it could just be, no, you're just having a natural reaction, but they have never had a reason to train or weren't raised in an environment where they would be open to that.
Also, if you have a lot of experience, even if you have a lot of experience, the other thing you run into is demonic spirits are very good at hiding.
Oh, yes.
Both their presence and their nature.
And they're not the only one either.
Oh, no, you're absolutely correct. But particularly bringing it back to the demonology angle specifically, my advice to anyone out there who considers themselves a psychic or a sensitive, or a paranormal group that's who's looking to work with one, is if you are a psychic, if you think you're a psychic and a sensitive, and you do not have proper training, avoid violent hauntings like the plague.
I want to put one small pinpoint on that. Just like with soft science at its beginning, there's a understanding or concept of what proper training is,
This is
there's
true.
no hard, rigorous training like if you were going to become a doctor.
Yeah.
It's, a lot of it is trial by error. There are some people where they don't have that much experience, but they can handle something that is demonic or maybe fatal or something like that.
That's absolutely
better
true.
than somebody else who has more experience, because it's also about what their actual attunement is, which that's also hard to peg in some instances.
Well, I would agree with you completely. My point here particularly, though, is if you're a psychic or a sensitive, and I've heard various people explain the difference. I'm not going to try and speculate on it now because that's off topic. And you don't know how to properly protect yourself, one, you're going to light up like a beacon to the spirit. And two, while you haven't developed any defenses, you have a whole new avenue for it to attack you that it doesn't have with normal people. And a demonic spirit, or some of the other nasty types of inhuman spirit, is going to screw with you hard just because it can. There are plenty of exceptions, and there are inexperienced sensitives and psychics that can handle it. But in general,
normal trial by fire.
yeah, in general, I would advise, if you're a psychic who wants to get into the paranormal, and you haven't been trained as a psychic yet, and you can't find a teacher, go to a bunch of historic sites, go to a bunch of places with human spirit hauntings, and get used to your abilities, and get used to what you're going to be confronted with, and build yourself up into dealing with something violent. Jumping into the deep end is a dangerous prospect if you're not ready.
Right.
And don't feel bad if you accidentally walk into something that's slow us down.
Because you will.
Well, they will, but there's the way it's being presented is step, and it is kind of like how people present the 12-step program. There's no way to skip when that's complete BS.
Yeah. Beth is, again, this is why Beth's involved, is she knows what she's talking about. Everything she just said, I agree with.
You want to give a number?
Yes. Thank you for mentioning I was about to. So, folks, if you want to call in, the number is 609-807-2492, 609-807-2492. I know we have...
Something else that we thought of is give out the email address.
Oh, good. Excellent.
We could do viewer mail at some point
Yes.
if people start writing in.
You can also contact us through Facebook, or through the Paranormal Encyclopedia, through Twitter, or through the Paranormal Encyclopedia Show, or through email, kevinm.paranormalencyclopedia@gmail.com, kevinm.paranormalencyclopedia@gmail.com. If you go to any of our old videos on YouTube, the email's at the bottom in the description.
Mm-hmm.
You have the link for Patreon, the link for
GoFundMe.
Yeah.
Well, not too much yet because we only just started. But you have the link for the Patreon. You have the link for the Audible trial. You have the link for the NordVPN. And then at the very bottom is always my email, so people can reach out. Feel free to ask questions in that manner if you're not comfortable or unable to call in. So moving on to other types of groups.
Yes.
Well, actually, I was going to ask you, how do you spot one that is credible?
I want to get through the goofball groups and then get.
All right.
That'll be the conclusion.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the build up.
Oh, it's
You gotta stick around to hear about this. But so the second worst group, and when I get to how stupid these people are, you're gonna be amazed that there's a dumber group. Is the group that are inspired mostly by an old society that's now not as prominent as it used to be, thank God, called International Ghost Hunter Society, IGHS.
And on that note.
And its local offshoot, Philadelphia Ghost Hunters Alliance. Their particular idea is, one, everything's a human spirit. There are no demons, there are no angels, there are no elementals, there are no fairies. It is all ghosts. And two, there is absolutely no effective method to get rid of a spirit. You just have to learn to deal with whatever phenomenon is happening in the house.
Well, that's about the least. That's about the least effective.
There's worse. There's one worse.
Well, yeah,
but they're about the bottom of the.
Where you're going.
They're close to the bottom of the barrel. And this guy, Dave Oster, who I found out today passed away in 2016, was training ghost hunting groups and telling people this. And it's damagingly and horribly dangerous. Because, I've talked more than once about the imp case I had where the experiences that woman went through were so terrible, she committed suicide.
Yeah.
You're
That's
going
not
to tell
something
that
you want to say there's nothing you can do.
Yeah. You're as useless as everyone else that didn't believe her in that case. This is why these people make me crazy. And it depresses me that it's like, no, they're only the second worst. There's one even worse than that. But the reality is, and the reality, I don't know for certain where demons come from. I have my beliefs and my theories. There are schools of thought that think that demons are human spirits. So it may very well be all human spirits. It could be the supernatural thing where demons are human souls that have gone to hell. Or even Christians that believe that. I just don't agree. But there's always something you can do about it. There's always something that can be done. Anyone who tells you that there's no solution to your problem, yeah, they're full of manure.
And are these guys charging for their...
No, I'll give him...
Okay.
Hey, there's the other crazy thing he did, but it wasn't charging.
Because I was going to say, if somebody charged me money to tell me there was nothing they can do...
Yeah.
Welcome.
There's a reason. Yeah. So I'll get into the other goofball thing that he did, which isn't so bad, when I get into the How to Tell a Good group.
Okay.
Because it relates. But I want to get before we get to that, let's get into the worst of the worst groups.
We talking about Katana Boy?
Katana Boy would be an example of this, absolutely.
I thought it was a broadsword.
I knew. No, it was a katana.
It was an Odachi. That's what it was.
It was an Odachi. So, and as those groups go, he's one of the better ones. That's the depressing part.
Oh,
Wait, we're talking about Mr. I follow the Crowley rule of thought of just open all the things? Are we talking
It's the
about
Crowley rule of thought. There was a school of thought, particularly championed by a form of magic known as Goetia. For those of you who are playing along at home, Goetia is magic taken from the Key of Solomon.
Oh dear goodness.
Okay. There's a series of books that are all attributed to Solomon, the Key of Solomon, the Testament of Solomon. There's some evidence that originally, way back when, Solomon did actually write a book on the subject.
Way back.
But we're talking about before the time, long before the time of Christ, talking about King Solomon from the Old Testament here. And the original book probably contained more. It certainly contained more than the Key of Solomon or the Testament. Most of the other surviving books, because it was a book of magic of both good and evil. It was summoning angels and summoning demons.
Called the Necrotilonomicon.
But what survives is mostly the rituals for summoning demons. So there's this absolutely brilliant school of thought of, you have a demon in your house. I'm going to come into your house and summon a greater demon to get rid of the demon in your house. There are groups out there that think this is a good strategy. And because apparently this isn't blatantly obvious to people, let me explain why this is stupid.
Yeah, I'd love to hear this.
It's a good analogy.
Let's take the best case scenario, that you got rid of the spirit that's in the house. It's the equivalent of inviting a serial killer to move in with you to deal with your cat burglar problem. Congratulations, you don't have a cat burglar anymore. You've got a serial killer for a roommate.
If it's Jeffrey Dahmer, it's not a problem.
Well, it depends.
Yeah.
It depends on the serial... on the whole, though, you're better off with the cat burglar.
Cat burglar is going to steal your shit.
Yeah, the serial killer is going to torture you and have fun with it.
Only if you're his type.
Okay, let me amend the analogy and say... invite a serial killer in who you are exactly his type.
Oh, dear God.
It's that stupid of an idea.
Yeah.
See, I thought that bit was implied. That's why I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
Imply nothing. You see, I wanted to have a debate with you tonight. I've been agreeing with you all night. I had to find something.
But, and It's the reality of the situation. You've invited something much worse into your house. And here's the other side of that. To go biblical and forget, non-Christians in the audience, forgive me because I'm Christian and I'm going to go with the Bible. But it's a legitimate point regardless. The Bible comments that when a demon is cast out, it goes and wanders the desolate places of the world, finds 7 worse than itself, and then it comes back. And if it finds the house in good order, basically the house neatly swept and cleaned up, and the space is still there, it's going to move back in with its 7 worst buddies. When you use evil to cast out evil, you're not, if it works all according to plan, if the higher ranking spirit doesn't move in, if the lower ranking spirit is moved out, then that lower ranking spirit is going to come back. And if you haven't made some kind of, you've created a stain by allowing a higher ranking evil spirit to enter your house. And 2, you haven't done anything to change the original reason why the spirit was let in. You probably haven't really changed. The reality is, you usually need to make some lifestyle changes and choices when you get a spirit cast out, because you need, usually the vast majority of the time, reality is most people who have spirits in their house have some hiccup in their relationship with the divine that you need to work through. If you've just gotten rid of it and you're not dealing with that, it's got the open door to just move back in and set up shop. And every single time this happens, it gets worse.
And it does have a tendency to lend to the statement of accountability. Nobody ever wants to blame themselves. Everybody wants to blame it on something else. Well, no, I lost my will to believe in the divine because this thing. But this thing only showed up because you lost your will to the divine. No, I didn't. I always believed it. Sure you did.
And this gets into the spiritual counseling that is part of running. I don't just a group that knows what they're doing, because I know what I do doesn't always work. I keep in touch with my clients to make sure it didn't come back to fix the problem. The other thing you run into with a lot of these, set a demon to catch a demon people, is they almost always charge money.
Mm-hmm. It's like taking your car to a mechanic. They break something else while they fix that immediate problem because they want you to come back. Completely forgetting bigger demons track mud into your house.
Absolutely true.
Amateurs.
And that, by far, the worst group out there, because they just make it worse. So how do you tell a good group from a bad? Not just when you're looking for somebody to investigate your house, but if you're looking to join a group. The first thing I would suggest is look for any obvious signs of any of the things I just listed. If they talk about on their website using ritual magic, talk to them and find out what kind of ritual magic.
Mm-hmm.
If Arthur happens to be listening, or any other magicians I know happen to be listening, I'm not necessarily denouncing any and all forms of ritual magic, but there are schools of thought in ritual magic, some of which are very bad, some of which aren't. Look at what they're doing. Are they summoning do they openly announce they're summoning one demon to get rid of another? Marcus, the guy with the Dodachi, admitted that's what he did. It's a pretty big red flag.
I'd say so.
It's a guy to avoid.
Are they asking for money? Do they say that there's nothing that can be done about the situation? These are the groups that you obviously want to avoid. There are other signs that are not quite so blatant. I would recommend, read over the website, call them, talk to them. If you want to work with them, ask to meet with the group.
Beware of the phrase free consultation.
Yes.
Because usually that means there's something that's not going to be free.
If somebody wants to work with me, and I think a lot of other groups probably do this, and if you're a group and you're getting started and you're looking for new members, I would suggest doing this. Lou had, and I've continued what I call the trial by fire. If you're going to come out with me, okay, I'm going to take you to a cemetery that I know to be active. And then I'm going to take you to an active part of the cemetery and I'm gonna go back over to the car, or otherwise leave you alone in that part of cemetery for at least an hour, and see if you can hack it. Because a cemetery is relatively low. Even the more active ones are usually relatively low activity. You're not going to get seriously hurt, but I need to know if you're going to flip out and run out of the house. Because again, if I take you in a house and you run out and freak out on me, it's not going to help the situation for obvious reasons, and it's going to put running around like a chicken with your head out cut off is going to put you in danger too. But good groups will probably want to do something like that. They're going to want to talk to you. They're going to interview.
This is why you won't see me on an investigation with Kevin.
Yeah, this is why I can't wait to be on an investigation with Kevin.
See, if I was going to take you on, if you really wanted to go, if I was going to take you on an investigation, I would take you to a historical site, somewhere with low, mild activity, where if you freaked out, it wouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah.
And where most likely the worst thing that would happen to you is you might feel.
Yeah.
That'd be it.
I just know better. I know myself.
And that's fine. And that's the other thing, folks. If you ultimately look into doing something like this and you decide, this isn't for me, there's nothing wrong with that. You've got to be crazy to do this. I'll be blunt. The first piece of advice.
Not crazy, motivated.
No, I'd still say crazy. First bit of advice I give everyone who ever asks me, and this goes for everyone else out there who's listening. If you think you want to do this, are you sure? And are you out of your mind?
Also, be ready to accept the fact that if you do actually participate in something might decide that it likes you too much to leave you alone.
Things will follow. There are ways to minimize it, but especially when you're dealing with a violent case as opposed to a historical site, one of the other reasons I'd only ever take you to a historical site is things can follow you home. Things will follow you home.
There's a good analogy to actually use with this. I'll use a food analogy because we all love our good foods. Yes? Yeah. Okay?
We're all a bunch of foodies, yeah.
Yes, we're all a bunch of foodies. Think of it like this. Gordon Ramsay making marinara. Even he will have a spot of red on his apron. It does not matter how good you are with the spoon.
And that's a really good analogy. Mm-hmm. And folks, if you want to know the real fun part, here's where it gets real exciting, because if you do this long enough, not only will things follow you home, they'll come looking before you even know you have a case.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've got a case coming when weird shit starts happening in my house. And that's, I've been doing this so long, it's normal. I'm almost a little more surprised when nothing's happening. You need to be aware of this. You need, and again, I'm not trying to scare everybody out of it. In my opinion, doing particularly demonology, if you want to go chase ghosts, go for it. It's a much safer line of work, and just stick to cemeteries and historical sites. If you want to, prove that this stuff exists, that is a fine and noble way to do things, and that's where I suggest you go. If you're going to do what I do, I just like Ed Warren used to have the same thing, and I agree with him. I hesitate to call it a calling, just because, to me, kind of calling is you're destined to be part of the clergy. It's something bigger than that. But people who do what I do are meant to do what I do. And you find out you're meant to do it really quick. When you start doing ghost hunting and you run into a violent haunting every other case, when weird thing, when violent hauntings happen around you in your home and you haven't done stupid, if God wants you to go bust ghosts and demons, God will let you know.
Yes, those bushes will be burning outside your window.
Yeah. If you're not, then you'll know. If you're not getting that kind of sign, this is probably not the work for you.
Now, I actually do have a question in regards to budding demonologists, ghost hunters, and the like as well. They might actually be a little bit knowledgeable on it. I'm not sure if it's off topic, but those that do have gifts, capabilities, and searching apparati, as it were, would you feel that whenever entering a particularly active zone, making it known blatantly to the space that you can sense, detect, and recognize, does that have a tendency to make it even worse? Almost like...
That's a good question.
Yeah, like, let's say, for instance, the studio's haunted, okay? I walk in, I don't say anything, and I leave. Guess what? No activity. I might feel something here and there. I might get my usual headache, but nothing really too major. But if I walk in and I suddenly say, I know something's here, the next thing I know, like ice picks through my temples, because I'm purposely acknowledging and making it known that I'm acknowledging, in which case then would it cause the activity to spike. Because the last time I checked, spirits love attention.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And that would be your answer. The answer is yes, because there's a concept here.
They hone in on those that can sense them.
It's called recognition. The more attention you pay to activity, the more you talk about it. The more you know, and this goes even to doing investigations. This is the ugly reality. The more energy you give it. This is one of the reasons that I don't use, we very deliberately don't use the names of demons on this show. And I don't use them in lectures. And this is a big part of why. There's an old saying from the Middle Ages, speak of the devil and he will appear. This is why. The more attention you give something, the more power you give it. So yes, I think you're absolutely. I think yes, that would actually give it more. You give it more recognition. You kick more energy into it, which also leads into another really good topic that we definitely don't have time for, which is what to do if you're living in a haunted house.
Yes.
Yeah, that seems like a natural topic for a.
I can speak from experience on that.
A lot of
I think we
people.
all can in some
Yeah.
instances.
I'll give the nickel tour of it, as it were, just because this is too important not to go. Tune in next week. But I don't know. I think maybe this should be next week's topic.
Yeah, definitely. And you want to know what? I'll see if I can actually upload the photos that I took of some of the activity that I had.
So if you think your house is haunted, the nickel tour, before we get into greater detail next week, one, calm. Try and approach it calmly. Think things through, because there's a whole list of natural things that people often mistake for the paranormal. From anything from like toxic mold, the subaudible sounds, animals in your walls, things like that.
Yep. Damn raccoons.
The next thing you want to do is, keep a log of what happens and when it happens. Don't worry about getting... Again, you don't need to get into measuring it like, well, it flew 10 feet because I took out a tape measure and I measured it. The fact that, if a refrigerator flew a foot, that's still a pretty big deal.
And I don't even think you really need to note how many centimeters. I mean, all you have to simply say is the refrigerator moved.
Exactly.
Enough said. But do note the time.
Yes.
That would be one thing. You note the time and you note the occurrence and the dates.
I would also, because of the recognition thing, avoid talking about it in the house. Avoid talking about it more than... Don't ignore it. Especially don't, if you have family members who are experiencing things, don't dismiss what they're saying. But the less active attention you give it, particularly in the site where things are happening, the better.
Can I say one more thing? If your kid is telling you that stuff is happening, don't dismiss it just because they're a damn kid. Because guess what? Usually they see crap that you don't.
Yes.
That's usually the peak. That's usually when, if they do have any abilities, that they will peek out. Now, that doesn't mean freak out just because they said they saw a thing, but take note of it.
Yeah,
If
don't
it's
dismiss it.
becoming a pattern, and also watch their behavior as well, because if they're communicating with it and it's giving them some really bad ideas, there's a difference between the imaginary friend or benevolent spirit, and then there's the asshole who's trying to corrupt your kid.
Yeah.
A lot of imaginary friends are actually guardian angels, or they're deceased members of your family who are watching out for the grandchild, great grandchild, or so forth. The other side of what you'll run in, and monsters under the bed may be demonic, they may be fey, they may just be passing spirits that have a weird sense of humor, or they may be, and the other reality is some of these things are really just the kid's imagination.
Yeah, but never dismiss it
Plus,
as
it could be,
just that.
lawful good and still have, a mischievous streak to you.
Oh yeah, just because acknowledge it Don't treat the kid like he's crazy necessarily. Don't make a big deal out of it. Don't think just because your sick kid is afraid of the monster under his bed that you need a full-blown exorcism, because there could be a lot of things going on there. And you know what? Here's another great piece of advice. If you think you got something in your house, the first thing to do, before you call somebody like me, go to your local Catholic church. Say, excuse me, I just moved into a place, or I've been in a place for a while. I haven't got around to it. Whatever. Could you please have a priest come out and bless the house?
I'll usually clear whatever the heck is going on right up.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was something that I was going to ask you. You sort of touched on it with the imaginary friend thing. There can be such a thing as a benevolent like haunting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, plenty of times.
Oh yeah, there's one in my house.
Yeah. Particularly around children, because children are generally very receptive. They tend to interact with spirits more directly than we do, and this show, for good reason, mostly talks about the dark and the dirty and the monstrous. There are other types of spirits out there. Not all of them are negative.
Some are nice.
It's one of the regrets of my career that I don't get the calls about the people who are getting visited by their guardian angel. I don't get the calls from the people who grandma comes by to say hello once a month. I get the calls from the people who are terrified, because when grandma comes by and visits once a month, and you get to see her for a moment, or you get to smell her favorite perfume, nobody calls a demonologist for that.
Why would you?
Yeah.
Unless she's was a jerk.
Or they had a tendency to purposely wake you up at 3 a.m. to pinch your cheeks.
Well, yeah, which is a different.
The ones on your face. You see, I went there immediately.
Of course you did. There are lots of positive types of spirits. They're and this is a subgroup of the other bad groups we're talking about. There are people that think, just as there are people who think that everything is a ghost, there are people who think everything's a demon. No, it's not. Even if you want to get strictly biblical, it's strictly one interpretation of the Bible, because the Bible doesn't even say it's all a demon, and say that it's all angels or demons. Just because it's a spirit doesn't make it a demon. There are angels too. And angels do interact with people, and children in particular often have close relationships with guardian angels and things of that nature. It's not unusual at all for a kid to have an imaginary friend that isn't all that imaginary, and most of the time it's not a negative spirit. It's not usually a haunting in the conventional sense of the word, because hauntings more often are earthbound spirits, and while earthbound spirits typically aren't malevolent, they're usually kind of confused. So they don't necessarily have that positive relationship. What was that?
Yeah, I caught that too.
Okay.
All right.
There are exceptions to this as well, but usually it's the spirit of someone that related to the family that's coming back. It's somebody who's crossed over to the other side, or to put it in Christian terms, who's gone to heaven, who is coming back to watch their loved ones, not somebody who's stuck here. Hauntings are usually specifically someone who's stuck here. I think that might be a good related topic to get into next week.
It is, certainly, yes.
And the two last things real quick, because we've got to wrap up, are, one, don't give up hope. Again, there is always a solution. And, three last things. Don't give up hope. Control your fear, because the more afraid you are, the more energy you give it.
Oh, yeah.
And if you have anything questionably occult, Ouija boards, books on black magic, if you got a violent, I'm sorry, no disrespect to tarot readers, because tarot is mostly harmless. If you have a violent entity in your house, unless it's something directly tied to your own religious beliefs, I'd seriously consider chucking it until you resolve the problem. Because even with something that can be neutral or even to a degree positive like tarot, demons can find ways to fuck with it. And anything that they can use as an excuse or a loophole, they will. But we'll get into all this more next week. We got to wrap it up, so...
On to Nord.
On to our second sponsor of the evening, NordVPN. Everyone is concerned about internet security these days, from governments to major corporations. Even the average internet user should be concerned about who's seeing your online information and how that information can be used. NordVPN is the answer you've been looking for. A VPN is a virtual private network that protects your IP address so that your online activity is protected by a military-grade encryption. The way it works is you connect to Nord's protected network and then they connect to the internet. It's a layer of protection between you and all the viruses, malware, and snoopers out there. Nord works on all devices too, not just computers. Your phone, tablet, whatever, up to 6 devices at a time, regardless of what operating system they use. Nord works with them all. Access all the internet content you want, streaming media, websites, and social platforms. Nothing is restricted on Nord, so it's a great way to get around those pesky firewalls at work, or maybe if you live in a country that's not so internet friendly. They have easy plans starting at a month for $11.95 down to 3-year plans for as low as $2.75 a month. Check it out risk-free at nordvpn.com, and you'll be glad you did.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap it up for tonight. I want to remind everybody, if you enjoy what we're doing, the simplest thing you do to help us out is like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends.
Yes.
If you do have a little bit of, if you can, you have the ability, please feel free to check out the Audible trial or the link for NordVPN in the description. Those help out the show, and they're really good options for you yourself. I mean, I have an Audible account. I have a NordVPN account. They're great services. I recommend them. And, of course, you can always consider helping out the GoFundMe, gofundme.com/paranormal-encyclopedia. Again, it'll be in the description. But that's going to do it for tonight. That's me, Kevin, saying good night and God bless.
Brian McKinley.
And Baron Voltage saying, avoid lightning rods. And don't forget to live long and prosper, Brian.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
There we go.